Vegan Gains.
Hey, what's up, man?
Nothing much. Just looking forward to a riveting conversation about veganism. I don't believe that there are like objective moral truths in the world. So we're just kind of like, no.
Well, it doesn't matter if they're like, I'm not talking about there being objective moral truths. I believe
cool.
morality is subjective as well.
Oh, well, if you believe morality is subjective, then why should I care about animals? Oh, I'm saying that there isn't any like objective, solid, grounding moral argument that you can give me to be invested in the well-being of animals. How do you know that animals have a subjective experience of feeling good?
How do I know? Okay, so are you going to appeal to solipsism now?
Sure. How do you know other minds exist? Why is them experiencing pain or suffering reasons for you to care about them?
There are moral facts. The thing that is subjective is people's perceptions and interpretations of behaviors with regard to whether those behaviors are moral. For example, if somebody enjoys dancing and thinks that their actions, that there's nothing morally wrong with the action that they're engaged in, and then one day it's pointed out to them that you're dancing on somebody's face and it's hurting them, their perception of the action with regard to morality, if they're intelligent and rational, will change because the behavior is resulting in harm to another feeling creature. You're only concerned with the well-being of people. It's just as arbitrary as saying I'm only concerned with the well-being of people of a certain skin color or people who have my skin color. Totally illogical. And I mean, you can describe what your preference is. You like vanilla. You don't personally have a nerve ending that ends in somebody else. So when they're experiencing pain, you don't have to feel it, and therefore you're unconcerned with it. But that's to say that, I guess we should start out by pointing out that the unfortunate fact of the matter is Destiny's position and Vegan Gains' position are that there's nothing immoral with raping and torturing little babies and little children for pleasure. There's nothing immoral about it, as a matter of fact. It might be something that they personally claim not to prefer, but both of them, based on the position that they advocate, I don't know that they even really believe it, trying to prove the existence of objective morality using mouth sounds and writing hieroglyphs or whatever isn't an easy task, but the fact that something isn't easy to articulate doesn't mean that it can't be understood, at least vague may not be the right word, but at least in let's say a vague sense. And I would argue that you can build a case for it in the same way that you can build a case, using the same type of reasoning that somebody would use in either like a court of law or a development of a scientific theory, in the sense that, you're never going to reach 100% proof, but you're going to present enough evidence that there is no reasonable basis to doubt the conclusion. Another way of understanding it, if you consider a newborn baby, a newborn is going to start out basically understanding whether or not it's comfortable or not, whether or not it's hurting or not, and it isn't really able to do a whole lot about it other than to vocalize, get a cranky look on its face, or to get a look on its face that we recognize as we're older, like, shoot, that's a face I make, or that's a face somebody makes when they're experiencing something that I recognize as uncomfortable or painful or sad or whatever. The newborn, and the very, very young and the infants, they're starting out only being aware of their own senses, how they're affected by things. And it isn't until they begin to grow and mature and learn that they begin to recognize and understand that, there are other beings out there that, like me, are experiencing things like hunger or sticky or hot or afraid, frustrated, right? They begin to realize they're not the only ones feeling things, and there's no rational reason to believe that their feelings are the only feelings that matter. Now, they are acutely aware that things like just to make it really obvious, excruciating pain matters. Like, it is by its very nature something that is important. It has to be taken seriously by the individual experiencing it, because they're plugged into it, right? So they are observing. You may as well put it in the category of a data collection, all right? So they are making an observation of something that is significant, either positive or negative, experience-wise. And that's not going to happen with a rock or a chair. Something that is incapable of experiencing things because it's not alive and doesn't have a brain, not conscious, or in the very least, we have no rational basis to even entertain the idea that the rock, that the banana peel, that the tennis ball, the tape measure is aware of anything, is experiencing pain or anything at all. It couldn't possibly matter unless something capable of being harmed is harmed. And you know that being harmed matters if you've lived long enough to experience it and think about it. And you're smart enough to say, holy shit, yeah, actually that does matter. I can't make it not matter. There's a value to not experiencing the bad. People will pay money not to experience it. Maybe not, it'd be easy to exactly quantify, but you can approximate it. Destiny ends up in this conversation with Lauren Southern and a bunch of other individuals who largely appeared to behave as though they were ditzes because they didn't seem capable of following. Destiny's particular line of reasoning was when he was basically saying, well, if something would help, I would be for it, even if it would be, seem grossy gross, right? I'm interested in the help. I'm interested in these kids not getting abused. If hypothetically this would result in them not getting abused, I would support it. To oppose that position would basically be saying, well, even if it would stop this kid, I would still oppose it and let the kid get abused. So they couldn't seem to put that together, but partly possibly because they recognize, there is a sort of sick detachedness somewhere in Destiny psychology. But anyway, it could also be just because they're not used to thinking very much critically. Just, having people tell them that everything they say is so wonderful and so important because they're cute or something like that. Who knows? Deep position. Oh, there's no moral facts. Why should I care if an animal suffers? You may as well say that you could say the same exact thing. Well, why should you care why should I care if a kid is suffering? He's getting strangled and raped and his throat slit. Why should I care? There's no moral facts. Your position is that there's nothing morally wrong with it. And as a matter of fact, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing immoral about what is done to a child if they're victimized in that way. Based on what exactly? Because you can't articulate it, right? I mean, you understand like concepts exist, even though you can't go out and find one, and put a tape measure on it. There's things that exist, and you can understand positive and negative states. You can understand that those states are significant once you've experienced them. You can understand you're not the only. We have no reason to believe you're the only one experiencing anything, and that everyone else is faking or robots or figments of your imagination. Those are just failed deflections, attempts to just hide and continue immoral behavior like, oh, well, I bet you if I just continue to pay people to throw baby birds in blenders and, basically sexually violate cows and suffocate and throat slit and imprison and, do all kind of horrible, basically torturous things to these other creatures that can feel and extract some kind of pleasure from it there's what's wrong with that? And the vegan gains I can understand the sort of feeling you feel forced or pressured to take the position. Like it feels safe to say that, well, there's no moral facts, because then you don't have to try to articulate it. But again, it's a vulnerability in your position. You're basically somebody who based on the position that you state that you hold, and I can't even believe deep down you actually hold the position, but it's a, for debating and stuff, I think it feels safer to you. The position is it is not a fact that it's immoral to, sexually abuse or whatever, anyone or anything ever. It might just be your personal preference, which is just, I want to begin the conversation of talking you out of thinking that position is sane. I don't think deep down your mind could even tolerate it. All we can do is try to find concepts that, you and the two people communicating, or the two or more people communicating, understand, and use mouth sounds or whatever symbols to reference those things and get the other person not, oh, I know what you're talking about, and not get too legalistic about it, and start arguing semantics and things like that, like what happened with Destiny and the Lauren Southern gang. And Lauren is actually one of my favorite people. I wouldn't say, and I think she would agree, she has every single thing always right all the time. But what's so impressive about it is she is interested in right and truth, and once persuaded, she will change her position, and she doesn't even back down to the crowd that supports her. She's earned a lot of respect, and should definitely go vegan. In any case, society has this practice of doing something that results in all kind of terrible harm, and people are trying to change society, and it starts by changing the minds of individuals in that society, and Destiny tries to downplay that and act as if, just one person isn't going to affect anything, so I'm not going to change. It's such a fail position. It is exactly the same position as I'm not going to give up my slave unless everybody gives up their slave, because then my standard of living, when he's actually like, I'll be vastly harming myself because I have soy milk or almond milk or oat milk or whatever instead of coconut milk instead of regular milk. The real harm is eating a peanut butter sandwich instead of a fucking piece of flesh. That's the harm. It's such a vast harm. I mean, it's so fucking pathetic. How can you appeal to, look, my harm, without just being outing yourself as nothing but a completely self-centered, self-absorbed piece of shit, while you're dismissing the experience of the billions of creatures that are made to be imprisoned and, violated and throat slit, suffocated, blended alive, all this other horrible crap, because you'll be so harmed having to have, Beyond Burger instead of flesh on bread. It's just so fail. I mean, it's so fucking fail. I mean, you may as well be the pedophile predator. Why wouldn't that's your quality of life? It's it's not as good as the real thing. Instead of just recognizing, well, shit, yeah, man, I actually might have some sort of kind of crazy ass feelings and notions and stuff, but it's not worth imposing a horrific experience, a traumatic experience onto someone that I've got power over. Instead of just recognizing that as a fact of the matter, as a moral fact that, that's crossing a moral line, you are extracting. Maybe the way to approach it with you would be finances, something that maybe can dress up as if it has nothing to do with morality. And I'll just say, you are spending other people's money for your own gain, and you're not just spending, you're spending all their money. You're spending their life for your gain, you're spending their $5 to get your nickel. And you'd be like, I'd sacrifice my nickel if I, didn't. How do we know that they care? You know, it's pathetic. It's so stupid. It really should be beneath somebody with your intellect. Well, there's a difference in taste between the Beyond Burger and the flesh on bread. It's a horrible just detriment to my life. I'm just harming myself. While completely fucking regarding the harm that you're imposing onto others. Just disgusting. I mean, you really ought to just be like, you know what? That is fucking stupid.